Evening, guys. Hope you're all well. So I just got Brelia's audio for Chapter 3, and I was able to edit it tonight, and pretty fast, too. So, I'll just get going. Hope everyone enjoys this as much as the previous two. Thanks. Chapter 3. The Meaning of Life as Told by Vinyl Scratch. Vinyl sighed as she levitated her saucer back down to the table before her. It was nice being in such a peaceful environment, at least for a while. Vinyl allowed another deep breath to come into her lungs as she laid back on the couch.
So, Octavia?
Yes, Vinyl, Octavia replied, looking her friend in the eye.
What were you doing in that club last night? Honestly, because your story doesn't quite check out.
Didn't your mother ever teach you it was rude to be nosy? Vinyl looked downward, a frown now growing across her lips.
No, I guess not.
Well, it is. However, I suppose you deserve the truth, even if it does make you uncomfortable. I have many friends there, I suppose, and other reasons. Vinyl looked back to Octavia, whose eyes averted her own. She raised an eyebrow.
Like?
Well, it's strange. Vinyl sat quietly as Octavia bowed her head and looked away, somewhat in shame, somewhat in embarrassment. She took a long breath before continuing. I was always raised to believe that filly foolers were lesser, immoral ponies. It's what my parents said. It's what I believed. But not too long ago I found out a good friend of mine, Lyra, was a filly fooler. Celestia, I hate that word, don't you? I suppose. Anyhoof, I found out she was, let's say, into mares, by her invitation to her wedding. Octavia chuckled a bit and looked upward in recollection. I remember opening the letter and being so shocked, and I didn't know what to think. All my foalhood I was taught they were just bad ponies, but I had known Lyra all my life. She wasn't a bad pony at all. And how could I have known her for so long and not even know she was into mares? I even knew she was in a committed relationship. I knew the pony's name, Bonbon, just not her gender, apparently. Octavia chuckled before becoming somber again. I was very confused for a while. It was the first time the world had shown me that the standards I was raised to believe were just wrong. Vinyl levitated her tea back to her lips, taking a sip before pulling a small notepad and paper seemingly from nowhere and nodding quietly.
Mm-hmm. Go on.
Octavia shot an annoyed glance. Allowing her scowl to change to exasperation, she continued her story. Well, I ended up attending her wedding as the mayor of honor. It was an absolutely beautiful ceremony. After that, I just couldn't find anything wrong with them. Vinyl nodded.
That's a very cute story, but I didn't ask you why you were tolerant of, mares into mares. I asked you why were you at that club. It just doesn't seem like your scene. Not because of the crowd, but the atmosphere.
Octavia smirked. My scene? I suppose it's not, no. But as I mentioned before, I played a large role in Lyra's wedding and her bachelorette party. It was at Filly Foolers, and at the time the club was a nicer establishment. I guess I just grew particularly fond of the club, even though I can hardly tolerate the music they play.
Careful.
Vinyl warned.
That's my bread and butter you're insulting.
Well, I hardly see how it's music. It's all repeating patterns and noise. How does one put soul and fire into the press of a key or the push of a button? No matter how well you perform or feel the emotion of the piece, it will not change. Vinyl frowned.
Octavia, putting yourself into your music is important, yes. The only difference is, with my music, I put myself in when I write, not when I perform. Have you ever even written a piece for anything other than the cello?
Octavia opened her mouth to speak, but was at a loss of words. Vinyl leaned in a bit as if sharing a secret.
Have you ever even written music for the cello?
Octavia remained silent. Vinyl gave an annoyed look.
Octavia, you can't feel true emotion in somebody else's piece because it's their emotion, their piece. Music lets you get what's inside you out so the rest of the world can hear. It's meant to be broadcast and felt, but not relived. That's why cover bands are always shit.
Octavia giggled. I suppose you're right, Vinyl. My composer writes all of my music. It has always been easier to follow than to feel, I suppose. The pair remained silent for a moment, Octavia deep in thought, while Vinyl merely stared. She saw so much activity and wonder in the mare across from her, so much emotion that seemed to be sealed in a conditional layer of society and judgment.
Octavia,
Yes, Vinyl.
what do you feel right now?
I don't know. Confused? Octavia looked to Vinyl, clearly suspicious of the point in this conversation.
Why?
Octavia sighed. I guess I have been living within music my entire life. It's been everything I am, everything I do. So how do I put that into music? My life has no romance, no struggles, no pain nor adventure. How am I to write music about music? And furthermore, why, if all I know of life is music, is the most disheveled, party-going, craziest mare I have ever met giving me the most profound speech of my art I have ever heard? Octavia raised her voice, throwing up her hooves. Vinyl smiled.
My life was what makes my music, and where I go and what I do makes up my life. It just happens to keep bringing me right back to shady places like that.
Octavia sighed. As is my story as well, but nothing happens at my clubs. It's the same lot of stuffy ponies merely sitting and listening, until I have performed and felt the works of some pony's very heart being poured onto a stage, into an audience, only to be met with polite applause. Perhaps that's why I like clubs. You can pour yourself into something and transform a crowd's behavior. When you're finished, you can bask in a roar of approval, not a simple pattering of hooves. You can make a club jump or sway, dance or come together. There's a reason no pony attends formal concerts with the intention of attracting mates. Vinyl chuckled before looking into Octavia's eyes.
It sounds to me like I know how you feel right now.
Octavia raised a suspicious brow. Surely if she didn't know her own head, this mare didn't.
Trapped, frustrated, and above all, bored.
Vinyl stated matter-of-factly. Octavia sat still for a moment, basking in the raw truth of what she was told. It was true. She wanted to escape her classical, stuffy regime and live freely, chaotic almost. She was tired of the order, the rules, and above all, what was right and wrong. So am I. But it's not as though I can simply change my life, Octavia scoffed.
Why not?
What? What do you mean, why not? I have a job, and friends, and an apartment. I have so many responsibilities.
So?
Asked in the same manner.
Can't you grasp this concept, Octavia? That you can always just leave, quit, move on? That's what I loved about what I do. If one day I decided I'm done with Canterlot, going into Trottingham, do you want to know how long it would take me? The trip to Trottingham and 30 minutes to pack.
Vinyl stated, unamused by Octavia's theatrics. How could you do that? Just get up and leave on a whim.
Because whims are your brain's way of telling you that now is the perfect time to do it.
Octavia blinked. Come again?
Spontaneity is the way of life should be lived, not according to plan. Plans fail. Fate doesn't seem to. It just has bumps in the roads. You can't say you failed to get where you're going if you got no place in mind.
So, you're telling me That if I want to do something, I should just do it? Without question? Octavia sat wide-eyed. Vinyl kicked back and put her hooves behind her head, stretching out.
That's my philosophy.
And how has that worked out for you? Octavia put a hoof to her chin, adopting a somewhat smug smile. There's no way this mare makes the kind of bits I do, or had anywhere near the grades, Octavia thought.
Well, certainly, I'm not as wealthy as you, or as classy, but I'm happy. I'm happy with where I am and what I do. And honestly, I wouldn't trade for all that for the approval of the princess herself.
Octavia took a moment to think. Happy? You traded all of that just to be happy? Do you even care what any pony thinks of you?
Just my friends, or ponies that I decide their opinions matter to me.
So basically you just run through life with no plan, not a care in the world, doing what you want, when you want, and not giving even a fraction of a buck what any pony thinks about you?
Pretty much,
answered Vinyl, now closing her eyes and letting out a breath, relaxing. That sounds fantastic, Octavia replied, eyes wide open. Just being happy.
Then try it. No pony stopping you.
Octavia blinked a few times before standing up, a blank expression upon her face. She simply stood, walked around the center table to where Vinyl sat calmly upon her couch, closed her eyes, and planted a gentle kiss upon her lips. Well, that turned out really well. Maybe my favorite chapter so far. Brelia, love, you did a fantastic job this time around, and I look forward to starting Chapter 4 myself. So, to everyone else listening, thanks again for tuning in, and I hope you keep liking. For now, good night.